G'day, it's Andrew Murray from the Apartment Specialist back again, and today I'm going to be talking about, or going through, the 10 mistakes Auckland apartment owners make that are costing them, that I see them making, costing them thousands of dollars when they come to sell their apartment. So it's a bit of a biggie. Now this is from a report I put out that I've had a lot of positive feedback from, and I've had people sort of ask me to go into more depth into each one. So what I thought I'd do is each podcast I'd go into one of these points. So the first one I'm going to be going through is about under-renting. Now it actually has a bit of an exponential effect. It's a lot more than you think, and I think you're going to be quite surprised with this one. Okay, so I made a very bold statement in that report, and I stand by that every $20 your apartment is under-rented, when it comes to sell, it's reducing the perception of value by $10,000 or more. So that $20 a week is costing you 10 grand. That's a lot of money, and I'll go through an example and show you that. Now, a lot of owners have asked me, well, how am I supposed to know what rent I should be getting? Well, the thing is, it's not your fault. It's who you're employing to do it. And that's a tough one, because if you look at the market being 67% investor, so being rented out, and the owner's not actually, like you're not actually living in your apartment, how are you supposed to know? You're going to be in another suburb of Auckland, another part of New Zealand, or in a different country. And if you've got one or two in a building, how are you supposed to know what the market rent is? And each building is different, and then each apartment is different, and then the condition of your apartment, and so on. So it's very, very difficult, and it comes down to the property manager, where that differs. It's just like real estate agents; they differ so hugely in regards to the service and what they do deliver. So yeah, it is a tough one there, but I can help you out with regards to that. I've just flicked me an email to andrew@apartmentspecialists.co.nz, or an easy one would actually be able to go to apartmentspecialists.co.nz to the website, and you can download the report that I'm going to talk to if you haven't already downloaded it. The 10 mistakes that's costing you guys a lot of money, and also a report on how to know if you're being looked after in the rental market, and how do you know if you're receiving the right rent for your apartment, and from there you can figure that out. Anyway, so I'm going to go through an example today using round figures. Now it is involving maths, so don't switch off. So what I've done is I've typed them out the numbers on a piece of paper. Okay, so it's sort of like, when you come through not through customs, but you come through an airport and you come in to see everybody and you see these guys holding up names. It's going to be a little bit like that. So anyway, so I'm going to use some general figures. And now if you're sitting there and thinking, well, my apartment's not an investor, or my apartment, buyers or purchasers, I want to sell them to an owner-occupier and get a higher price. Well, spot on, well done, and you're right. But the thing is, when you look at it, what do you think is pushing those values up for the owner-occupier? It's very different to the housing market, because this market, you've got a majority of people looking to buy apartments who are investors, and the investors will push those values up, and the owner-occupiers will have to come up and beat them. So it's pushing, the higher you get the investors up, the owner-occupiers are going to have to come up, you see? So it's actually working in your favour, and very important. And if it's an owner-occupier sort of type of apartment, but you're renting it out, well, of course you want the most income possible. Okay, so let's say we'll just use a typical investor apartment, pretty small, valuing around about, say the market value is 300,000. Okay, it's a 2 bedrooms, around about 50 square meters, and it's got no car park. Okay, and the investor goal, so an investor who's the typical kind of buyer is looking for, I'm using round numbers again, every investor is different, but let's say in this case it's a 7% return. Okay, so his goal is a 7% return. Now this is a net return. Okay, when net means, it means after expenses. Okay, so after your body corporate and after your rates. Now, when people say, well, what's a 7% return? Now that is, if you take a 7% return, means if an investor spends $100,000 of their money each year, after expenses, if it's net, after expenses, they want to receive 7% of that $100,000 back. So 7 grand back in income. If it was 8% net return, they would want $8,000 back. So you get my drift. Okay. Now, They use an equation, and the various equations are different. Are used, but they all come out with the same answer. Okay, so if you've got, say here we've got, they use your income, which is a rent, times 52 weeks. Now 52 weeks, some use 50, some use 48, but we're just using typical case here. And then minus your expenses, which is your body corporate, and your rates, as I mentioned before, and then you divide it by the return you're looking for in a decimal value, which is in this case 0.07, which is 7%. Okay. Now, so your apartment. So for this apartment, the rent, the market rent is $500 per week. So that's what it should be receiving. Okay. And if it's not being rented properly. Okay. Or there's a reason for it. Okay. Now, the body corporate fees $4,000, just a round figure, and your council rates are $1,500. So that's your expenses, your outgoing. So we put that into the equation. So you have rent times 52. So 500 times 52 minus your expenses, which is your $4,000 for your body corporate, $1,500 for your rates, and divide it by that 0.07, which is your 7% return level that the purchaser is looking for. And so what that does is gives you a figure. And that'll come out at the value of what your apartment's worth. Okay? So this investor is saying to you, okay, at that rent, at market rent, to me it's worth $292,857. And they may go to around $300,000 to purchase that apartment. Now this is where it's my job to make that perception as good as possible, that the rents are going to go, looking at the rent trends to try to get that rent up as I can, work with the property manager, work with the tenants, and that kind of thing. And that's something I do with every apartment. Some will actually say, unless if it's an emergency to sell, I'll go, can you wait? Because I've got to, I want to be able to make sure that you're getting the best rent you can for your apartment, and we can probably work with the tenants and the property manager to see if we can achieve that. Now, I don't do rentals myself, but I know who the good ones are, and the ones that I prefer to work with that I can help with if you're interested. Anyway, apart from that, now, so what I'll go through first of all is, let's say, I said a very bold statement in that, and I mentioned it earlier, about that every $20 costs you 10 grand. So every $20 your apartment is under-rented, or not getting the rent it should be, you're receiving, well, it's worth to an investor's value, $10,000 or more less than it should be. Now that's a lot of money, okay? So what I'm saying is, I'm going to say, okay, let's say your apartment is not rented for that $500, it's market rent, which it should be. It's rented for $460. Okay, so that's $40 a week less than you should be getting. Now some people go, okay, well that's not a big deal. Well, it's over, for starters, it's over $2,000 a year, right, which is a lot of money. But you'll see when it really gets interesting is when it comes to the value and how an investor looks at it. Okay, so when you put those figures into the equation that I talked to before, which is that 460 times 52, which came out around about 23,000, minus your expenses, you come out with a completely different figure. And wait for it. 263,142. That's almost 40 grand. Okay, so that's just from having your apartment not receiving the rent it should be, just by $40, the perceived value by the investor has gone down by 40,000. So now you can really see the effects and why it's so important to have the right property manager, the right people looking after you, and the right advice. So I hope this has been helpful. Next week I'm going to be talking about traders, how traders purchase property, how to make sure, how to know if there's trader interest in your property when you're selling, what's happening with it, what happens in this market with traders. Now traders are people who buy apartments off you guys, off owners, and sell at a profit. And the weird thing is that the majority of traders' deals they get through real estate agents. So that means you're paying for a fee to sell it to a trader who makes it a profit. So it's how to be aware of that, understand it in this market, and make sure it's not you. Anyway, so also when looking at this, what I've done is, if you haven't already downloaded this report, I highly recommend you do. I've had a lot of really good feedback from it, and it will help you obviously with the future podcasts. So just go to apartmentspecialists.co.nz, put in your email, and we'll send it out to you. And yeah, hope it helps, and I'll talk soon. Cheers.